So hello everyone and welcome back to another video. It's been a while since the last one. My university semester has started, so I actually have to do work now, no longer on vacation. So yeah, I think content is gonna slow down a bit, though I have a couple plans on what I'm doing. This is one of them. So this is a screenshot from a spreadsheet that I just finished making, and it is basically a binning result from all my GTX 580s / GF110 based GPUs, if you count this one down here, because that's not a 580 technically. So since I have so many GF110 based cards, I just wanted to do some standardized testing with them and find out where they fall, because yes, you have the AC quality reading in GPU-Z, but that's not always the indicator of how good it's gonna be. It gives you an idea how much voltage the core is gonna need, but it tells you nothing about like how good the cooling on the card is, how good the PCB is, and all that stuff. So I just made some standardized testing, and yeah, so basically I took all the cards, I maxed fan speed, I set vCore and software, more on that later, and I just ran Firestrike. If it runs like the entirety of Firestrike, like GT1, GT2, CPU test and combined, that's stable for the roots of this test. And I also left vmem stock because some of these cards can actually control their vmem in software. So yeah, the cards going into the race are my GTX 580 DirectCO2, the first card that I ever bought for modding. Then we have my known good GTX 580 Lightning, the sketchy 580 Lightning, or as it's called by MSI, the Twin Throzer 3 Power Edition, which is just like a it literally just is a Lightning with 4 capacitors missing. Then we have the Zotac amp and the Point of View GTX 580. Both of these are reference PCBs with the reference cooler. And then at the end, because it's also based on a GF110, I put the 560 Ti 448 into the race. Though you can see that card doesn't really tell us anything, because, well, if you followed the live stream I did, overclocking the GTX 480, and then later also doing some testing with the with this card right here, you will know how much of a hassle it was to get those cards, like especially the 580, booted. And yeah, that very much happened here in the test. So everywhere where there's a question mark, I couldn't get the card to work. You can see in the notes that there's some special things with some of these cards, and also all of the darker, like there's a value here, there's a value there, there's a value there, but all of these are marked with the slightly darker color. These are results that I cannot verify, or results that I don't trust. So yeah, that has a variety of reasons. But let's just get into it, starting at the top, because those went really well. So the 580 DirectCO2, I've complained about it before, that the heatsink is very, very bad. And this might not seem that bad, like 64 degrees, yeah, it's slightly hot, but I mean, it should be okay, should it? Yeah, I mean, 64 degrees is okay, but that 855 megahertz at or normalized. So I ran 2 tests, one with 1.025 volts and then another test with 1.15 volts. And yeah, the card ran very, very, very slowly at that voltage. Which, like these 2 cards, the DirectCO2 and the known good Lightning, they have an AC quality that's literally 0.2% apart. Like the DirectCO2 has 89.1%, the Lightning has 88.9%. And then you have such a difference in clocks at the same voltage. And like, it's not that the cooling is that much apart either. Like, it's 4 degrees. That's, I mean, it is a difference. It's not margin of error, but it's not that much, at least for the first test. And then also the memory is 150 megahertz apart. And I know that the memory on the DirectC 2 can do 2675 because when I ran the card on chilled water, it did that on the memory. So yeah, the DirectC 2 is just really, really disappointing. Like, the clocks are low, memory clocks are also low, the temperature is the highest of all of these. And then for the overvolted test, it's also the highest temperature result. And all of the fans are maxed, I mind. Like, keep that in mind, the fans are maxed. The heatsink is very, very loud and annoying at that point. Like, the fans are maxed, and it's still hitting 81 degrees at 1.15 volts. Like, that card can go to, actually, I think for the stock BIOS that is actually the limit, but I have unlocked that card to 1.2 volts, at which point it hits 98 degrees basically instantly. So you just can't run that on the stock heatsink. So yeah, and then also that's just really disappointing. Like, the PCB is pretty nice. I really like the PCB. It's not as good as the Lightning, but it's definitely second in place. Like, it's an 8-phase, it has very powerful MOSFETs, it has a whole bunch of output filtering, and then it just underperforms like that. While also occupying the most space. And I haven't measured it, but the DirectC 2 was the most annoying for noise. Yes, it was more annoying than the reference cards, while also running louder than them. And I really tried to fix the cooling on that card, because I actually found out that 2 of the mounting screws I was using for the heatsink were not the original ones, and they were slightly longer, so they had less mounting pressure than the card was supposed to have. So I fixed that. I found the original screws, and I used a lot of mounting pressure to think, well, maybe it was just mounting pressure. It wasn't. So yeah, the bad performance that I saw before is just, well, because the card is awful. The heatsink, at least. So yeah, and that's kind of really annoying. Like, there are a lot of DirectC 2s out there in the wild, and it is a genuinely nice, like, from me, I'm not hiding the fact that I'm a Gigabyte fanboy. From me, praising an Asus product for being good, this is one of the few Asus products I actually like. It still has a lot of flaws that are typical Asus things, but I actually like that card. And if you put it on water, if I use my janky custom water loop with a 240mm radiator, the card actually runs faster than this. It does top every single card in this comparison. It's probably not gonna be the fastest anymore if I put all of these cards underwater, but if I put the DirectC 2 underwater, it will beat the 1 GHz score from this card down here. So yeah, I mean, if you have one of these cards, just get rid of the stock heatsink. I would just say, get a Morpheus or get a Accelerate Extreme 4, like this card is running. Get one of these, delete the card, get rid of the IHS. All of the cards that I tested actually have still, oh, actually the last one is deleted, like this one's deleted. All the other cards still have the IHS because I tested the stock heatsinks, except when it's noted that it isn't the stock heatsink, because some of these cards will not actually run with the stock heatsink anymore. But yeah, so if you fix the thermal issues with the DirectC 2, at least on my DirectC 2, which has like 89.1%, that's pretty high. It's my second highest ASIC quality core, I think. I don't have the exact numbers memorized. But like, yeah, this card does pick up a lot of speed if you just cool it down properly. So if you have a direct, like any direct CO2 Fermi card from Asus, get rid of the heatsink, delete the card, get a better heatsink, or go straight to water cooling. Thank me later. So that's for the direct CO2. Let's go to the Lightning. This is technically my best card, solely based on the PCB. It is using the same PCB as the one below, but it has those extra 4 capacitors, and it also has some. While testing, I actually found out that the Lightning can go to 1.2 volts. The Twin Throzer 3 has a BIOS that is restricted to 1.15 volts, which is kind of like 1.15 volts is like a usual voltage that pretty much every card can set. So I just use that for over voltage because I don't have... Actually, I have the ability to set all of my cards to 1.2 volts. I just didn't want to do it because the direct CO2 would literally melt. So yeah. So the Lightning performed pretty decently. It has the best memory of all of them. The core, like over 900 megahertz at like, that's technically not 1 volt, but it's pretty close to 1 volt. And I'm actually pretty sure that the core actually got 1 volt or lower. Because I've said before, these voltages are set in software. So when 1025 millivolts wasn't already the stock voltage, I tweaked the voltage in MSI Afterburner until MSI Afterburner displayed 1025 millivolts. I have not verified that there's actually that voltage going to the core, because I'm not gonna compensate for like bad power plane design or like bad voltage measurement design. If the card is reporting a wrong voltage, or if the power plane just drops so much V-core, I'm not gonna compensate for that. Like, you're gonna compensate for that because that would be unfair. So yeah, and the Lightning is a card where I observed a lot of voltage. Actually, like on V-core, all of these cards should have a lot of voltage drop, but the Lightning is especially bad with memory voltage drop. So the Lightning cards are actually cards that have software voltage control for the vMem rail. So you can set it to 1.7 volts in MSI Afterburner. And I tested with a multimeter. If you set memory to 1.7 volts, which is 100 millivolts higher than stock, the last memory chip still only gets 1.61 volts. That's like stock. So you overvolt the memory as much as you can, and the memory chip that's furthest away just about gets stock voltage. So that's a giant voltage drop, mainly because the vMem VRM on the Lightning PCB is so far away from the memory chips. Like, you can look up the PCB overview if you want to see what it looks like. So yeah, the Lightning is especially bad for VDroop, and not VDroop, voltage drop on the memory. And to see it outperform everything else like this is actually pretty nice. It's also actually the reference cards also have kind of memory cooling, but it's really bad there. So yeah, that's a really good memory clock. And actually this is not the best it can do, because again, it's stock. If I overvolt memory, the Lightning will do 2550. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. It did 2550 at some point, so it can go much higher. Temperature, yeah, it's okay. Like, it's not amazing, but it's okay. And then that's also okay. It's actually tied with the stock, with the reference cards, which is kind of surprising. But considering they only need to pass a single run of Firestrike to like get through, that small temperature difference is, yeah. Actually, this temperature reading, I don't know what's up with that. I'm just writing down what MS Afterburner told me, but like that's really low. So yeah. Then overvolted, 980 megahertz. You see again. The cores of these two cards are basically identical, like 0.2% difference in AC quality. If you only go after AC quality, you would assume that these clock the same. But no, the Lightning does 980, and it's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And if you put a proper heatsink on this card, it will do 1 GHz no problem. Yeah, and also one reason why the heat might be higher is you've seen it on the live stream. For some reason, both my Lightnings only run in the 8X slot of my motherboard. And if they are in the 8X slot, they are very, very much starved for airflow. So they have a cooling disadvantage compared to the other cards that do run in the 16X slot. I don't think that the reduced bandwidth is actually gonna do a lot because it's a 580 and like a 2080 Ti just about maxes out a 16X 2.0 slot. And considering that a 580 is not anywhere near half as like fast as a 2080 Ti, I think it's gonna be fine on 8X. I can't verify that though, but it's just, I don't think 8X is an issue for them. It's just cooling. So yeah, the Lightning is actually pretty decent. I really like what the Lightning does. The memory on it is really good. I'm really happy about that memory. And I am looking forward to when it gets really cold in winter this year. I can't say if I'm gonna do some really extreme overclocking, but I am at least planning to run chilled water again. And this time not only the direct CO2, this time I'm gonna look at other cards as well. So you might see the Lightning smash some of my personal records. Then the other Lightning, or the Twin Frozer 3 Power Edition as MSI calls it, does even better. 950 megahertz at what's basically 1 volt. That's really good. And the AC quality is also the highest I have. This has a better than 91%. I actually don't know what the actual AC quality is. But it's actually not that much higher than these two, but it is still higher. And you can see that. Like, that's an insane clock for that little voltage. Sadly, the memory on it is trash though. It's still the second best in this listing, but yeah, even if you overvolt the memory, like because this also has the software overvolt feature, it doesn't really get better. So yeah, this card is really not exciting for memory overclocking, but it does have a really, really good core. Also does cool a bit better because this is not on a SOC heatsink anymore. This is running the Accelerate Extreme 4, because if I put the card on a stock heatsink, it's gonna artifact and not run, because the card is like, it's really sketchy. It needs the right amount of mounting pressure to run, and the stock heatsink has a really, really low mounting pressure. That's just not enough to have the card running. But the Accelerate Extreme 4 seems to have just about the right amount of mounting pressure to have the card run reliably. So I have it on that heatsink because, well, I'm actually not using it for anything else right now. So it's just gonna stay on that card until I need it. So yeah, and it does actually 1 gigahertz at 1.15 volts. I've run 1 gigahertz on 2 other cards. That would be the Direct CO2 and the 560 Ti 448. Both of them, though, with much higher voltage. The Direct CO2, as I've said, it needed water cooling and also 1.2 volts. And the 560 Ti 448 actually did not need water cooling, but I ran it at like 1.35 volts. I think the peak I pushed into it was like 1.45 volts. It got freakishly hot. But since it's not a fully populated card, like it only has 448 cores, which is what that stands for, and normal 580s have 512 cores, so yeah, the heat load was slightly... Okay, my audio crashed. That's great. So yeah, I think at max I pushed 1.45 volts into the 560 Ti 448, at which point it ran 1050 megahertz, I think. It got really hot though, because it was not on water. It was on a custom air heatsink on the you've seen it a couple times. It's another Accelero heatsink, but not the extreme one, but it's like a single fan one that I took the fan off because that one was actually dead. But yeah, so if I put this this card under chilled water, I hope 1100 megahertz is in it. I really hope it will do 1100 megahertz, because that's a goal I haven't reached yet. Because like this card, it does have a really good core also, but it just needs so much voltage, at which point I'm not really trusting the VRM anymore, and also it just gets really hot, and at some point you just can't cool that anymore, and the card gets too hot and becomes unstable. But yeah, I'm really happy that I managed to save this card, because like at the beginning I genuinely thought it's lost. But yeah, I mean with that heatsink it actually works, and it is really good. Like it's just 20 megahertz, but the thing is, if I can still go higher in voltage, and it doesn't look like it's done scaling. So yeah, and I mean that difference is also bigger. Like that's a 30 megahertz difference. So yeah, that's so the second lightning, I just call it the second lightning. It's really impressive for the core. It sadly is just being held back by the memory. Because like, from what I remember, memory clock on 580s actually gives you a lot of score. So I think the normal lightning is actually gonna score better, just because it has better memory. Because from what I remember, like memory clock is worth more points than core clock. So yeah, but I'm still very happy with both lightnings. So let's get into the other, like the last three cards, and these were really annoying. You can kind of see what's wrong with the Zotac card right here, because it says dead. Yeah, the card is dead right now. It needs a new reflow. The reflow I did stopped working. I mean that's always like I marked all the cards that I toasted or did a reflow on. And when you do that, you never know if it starts working again, how long it's gonna keep working. And this one dropped dead again. So I think I'm gonna reflow it again, and if it doesn't work, then it's getting turned into an e-power, because the Zotac card is the worst for everything. I don't have numbers here because, well, it's dead, and these numbers are just numbers that I took from old runs, from sometimes different benchmarks even, which is why they are marked in that dark gray, because I cannot verify them. And that 920 should actually also be dark gray, because that's just like what I remember it did and never actually documented. So yeah, and also the card had a lot of mods on it, and it was still the slowest. Not much to say about that one actually, like it's just bad. So the point of view 580. The one with the green PCB that I was so excited about, just because it's green. It matches the direct CO2, which is another roast for the direct CO2, because this again is a reference PCB with a reference cooler. So yes, while the clock is not impressive, it's just another card shitting on the direct CO2, because it's under these conditions, it's literally not better than a reference card, and yeah. Asus, what the fuck? Yeah, the memory though is the worst, mainly because it's Hynix. Hynix memory doesn't scale with voltage, and it also just generally clocks worse. So yeah, not really great, but that's not why I like the card. I actually just like the card because it has a green PCB and because it looks unique. That's why I like that card. That again, that 950 megahertz is from an old run, like it's a non-verified result, because it also ran into issues, and like it's either a driver thing or it's also beginning to drop dead again, like this Zotac card. Like it just is very, very unstable from time to time, and just like when Windows starts, it starts to artifact and crash, and then sometimes it boots and runs a benchmark, and it's just weird. So yeah, that's why the results are also kind of not complete for this card. And then the last one is just this card just refused to work completely, which is kind of sad because I remember it having a good core and good memory as well. Like I think it matched the Lightning for core when, like, all the way back when it was on the stock heatsink, and I think it was actually a bit better for memory than the Lightning. So this could technically be, like, this could be my best card for memory overclocking. I just can't verify it because it won't work. Like this card, the 560 Ti 448, has the same mounting pressure issue that this card has, and just to a much worse extent. Like I might actually also have to reflow this again, because it's like gotten worse. At the beginning you just had to give it enough mounting pressure, and then over time you had to like a very specific amount of mounting pressure, like not too much, not too little, and now it just is very hard to get to work at all. So yeah, I repeatedly tried to boot it. I tried both the 8X and the 16X slot. I actually got a picture in the 16X slot, but it was like full of artifacts and all that stuff. So then I tried tweaking the mounting pressure again, but either it was just not booting up, or it was booting up and then artifacting, and just, yeah, can't get it to work. But the note is, so it's running on the Phantom heatsink that I got from the 580 Phantom that I turned into an e-power, and I did put some extra capacitors on it. But that's like about it. So yeah, actually something I kind of skipped is like this result for the temperature, because both of these results are actually verified. Like this is not from the same day, but it's from the same test under the same settings. So yeah, it's just an earlier result from another day, but like this is the lowest of them all. And also this is like, this result is just copied up, like just copied there. But like 73 is also what the Lightning did, and the Lightning heatsink is very, very, very beefy. So I was just really kind of confused. Like this is a reference heatsink. It can't even go to 100%. Like it's at 85% fan speed is the max it can do. It can't go to 100, which is why I said maxed fan speed, not 100%, because technically that would be wrong. So yeah, I don't know what's up with the 54 degrees. Maybe it's just because, again, it's just a single run of Firestrike, so it's not that long, and maybe the vapor chamber in the stock heatsink just has a lot of thermal mass compared to the other heatsinks, so it just needs time to heat up. And that's maybe it. So if the test is short enough, it will actually like stay down at a relatively low temperature, which might actually be why it matches the direct CO2, because this core is a much lower AC quality than the direct CO2. So yeah. But that's pretty much it. We are also going into the 30-minute mark. So yeah, that's kind of all my high-end Fermis. Well, the 480 is not in this because the 480 is Fermi 1.0. These are all Fermi 2.0. actually, like the 480 it would probably beat these two results for the core, because my 480 apparently has a really good core, but the memory on it is just slower because it's a 400 series, not a 500 series. So 400 series just doesn't overclock as far as 500. But like the core of my 480 is kind of an outlier, so it's better than average. But yeah, so that's all of my GTX 580s with that last honorable mention. That's not really adding anything. Summarized, tested, binned, whatever, at like static voltages, and yeah. So that's what my cards can do. So yeah, to summarize again, I really like my two Lightnings. I really like those. The OG Lightning just because it's great overall, and then the Twin Furzer just because it has a really good core, and also because I now have a second Lightning that I can mod without risking to lose my ability to run Lightnings, because I now have two of them. I might do SLI with these, but I need a second power supply for the second card, and I technically have one, but it's a pain to set up, and I can't water cool both of them at the same time, so I might do SLI, but not really a priority. Then the direct CO2, it's just it's disappointing. It's just, it could be so much better if Asus just included a proper heatsink. Like, coolers is like one thing that Asus seemingly always manages to F up. Like, even the RTX 3070 Strix has a sticker under the memory thermal pad. Like, of all the places to put a sticker, why do you put them there where you have to transfer heat? And that's just like a thing that makes me say, yeah, Asus just can't do coolers apparently. And that's really what is holding the 580 Direct CO2 back. Because on water, this thing is a beast. Sadly, with the stock heatsink, it's just very unremarkable and disappointing. So yeah, then my two reference cards, well, both don't really run because they have issues. They are like reference cards. Like I like this one because it has a green PCB, and I have this one because I just do tests with it. And then the last one is just, yeah, wouldn't run. Wouldn't play with me. Just decided to be a jerk. So yeah. But the video is long enough now. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and until we see each other next time, goodbye.